welcome to Boots to Roots Farm. Today we're going to talk about everything Kunekune. We love these pigs on our farm. They are by far our favorite hog to raise. It's something we want to specialize in, and today we're going to talk about why exactly that is. So stick around.
Let's talk history of the Kunekune. The Kunekunes originally came from New Zealand. In Maori, the native tongue in New Zealand, Kunekune actually means fat and round. So it's a very appropriate name for a very fat and round little pig. So in 1970, there were only about 50 of these little piggies left. They were all in New Zealand, and they really were on the brink of destruction. That's only, 50 years ago. So we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about how recent this pig has really returned to the world in its abundance, and it really is a testament to the great quality of both the pig's temperament and the meat and a number of other things. In 1992, two gentlemen from the United Kingdom took a journey over to New Zealand, and they were really determined to search for these pigs. They were successful. Many of these pigs were in Maori villages out in the middle of nowhere, but these gentlemen did come back with a number of pigs, several pig lines that they brought back to the United Kingdom.
So around 1996 or so, the pigs made their way over to the United States. We can trace any and all lines from Kunekunes back to those original pigs that were brought over to England, to the United Kingdom in 1992, or over from either New Zealand or the United Kingdom in 1996. We'll get more into pig lines and the genetics behind it in a later video. It's something that we could go on for hours. It's pretty complicated, but it's pretty cool how you could trace every pig that is now in the United States back to those pigs that originally came over less than 30 years ago. Let's talk a little bit about the societies that track lineages with the Kunekunes. There are two societies that do that in the United States. There's the AKKPS, or the American Kunekune Pig Society. They have a wonderful website that I cannot promote enough. You go on there, there's some great information about Kunekunes, there's some great information about the lineages of Kunekunes, care, a number of things. So go check them out. The other society that traces Kunekunes is more recent. It's the AKPR, or American Kunekune Pig Registry. They're both great societies, they're both great registries, depends on what you're looking for as far as tracking and the information that's held in those registries, but they're both perfectly suitable for Kunekunes. Hey guys, all right, let's move on to breed characteristics. The first thing, and probably the most distinguishable thing about the Kunekunes, is what we call wattles. There's these little flaps of skin and tissue that hang from either side of their jaws. Let me see if I can get, this is Charlie. And these are Charlie's wattles right here. It's a little hard to see. There he goes. He might turn for us. But these guys right there are his wattles. If we come over to Jack, our bigger boar here, Jack will let me do whatever. He's the sweetest. So these are wattles. And I put some pig feet on the ground, so they're going to burrow around on that. But those wattles are very distinctive breed characteristics with the Kunekunes. It's something that you see in most of them. However, it's not necessary, and it's not necessary to register them as well. They can have two, they can have one, they can have no wattles. So that's number one with the breed characteristics. The second breed characteristic we're going to talk about is what's called a dished face. It's when you're looking for a Kunekune, you want a face that is kind of dished, almost like a satellite dish, I would say. I'm going to try and get down here with some of these pigs and show you exactly what I'm talking about. They do have a short snout on them rather than the elongated snouts that hogs have, and that will give you less rootage, but that's not going to mean that there's no rooting at all. We'll talk more about that later on. Let's see if we can see Charlie's dished face here. Charlie's got a pretty upturned little snout. Hi, baby. And as you can see, if we come around to the side, his face is pretty dished, just like this. All right, so that's breed characteristic number two that we're going to talk about.
So the third breed characteristic that we're going to talk about is the conformation. When we say conformation, what we're talking about is the arch or lack thereof of the back, the sturdiness of the legs, the overall shape of the animal, and the overall condition of the animal. Now, I'm going to give you a caveat here. My pigs tend to be overweight. I do overfeed them, and I know it's bad, but working on it. It's been a long quarantine for all of us. So let's look at Jack here. Jack is a really great example, and you can tell that even though his head is down and he is eating and rooting, his back is still fairly straight. You will have some arch if their heads are down, but overall you want a pretty flat back. You don't want anything that is too arched or too humped or too sagging. You know, you don't want a saggy back and you don't want an arched back. A very flat back is what you're looking for. As far as the legs go, you essentially want them to be directly under each quarter of the pig, just like this. They want to be sturdy enough so that the animal can move around freely. And I'm sorry for the barking and everything else in the background. We've apparently got some activity out there. You want the pig to be able to move around freely, get up, get down, run. All of those things, they should be able to support their own weight very easily. The third thing that we're going to talk about is the overall size and condition of the pig. As you can see, my pigs are a little overweight. You can tell that most easily. You can tell by their eyes. It's called fat blindness, and it's something where their eyes will actually, the fat will start to settle over their eyes, and they'll have a hard time seeing. The other way that you can tell is if you're looking at a pig from behind. You don't want a big, huge booty, right? You want a butt section and hams and thighs that are very sound and structured. You don't want them to go in, you don't want them to come out, you want a very square back end. So that's another way that you can tell the condition of a pig.
It's just so if you, let me talk about it. Hey guys, let's talk ears. This is the fourth. Why am I so bad at this?
You're not. You're just thinking that you messed it up. It's right there.
There's a bird in the barn. Hang on. Okay. All right, guys, let's talk ears. This is the fourth breed characteristic that we're going to be discussing. You have a couple of options when you're talking about ears. You have both pricked, which is what all of our pigs are on this farm, I believe, and you also have a flopped option where the pig's ear comes over their eyes, just like this. I can give you an example, like I said, of a pricked-eared pig. That's kind of a challenge to say, and that's, well, any one of these. Jackie. So, oh gosh. As you can see, Jack's ears are straight up here. You can also have kind of a partial flop as well. You'll see them, they're sort of like this. And then a flopped ear would just be completely covered like that. Ears, number 4.
Okay. All right, guys, number 5, teats, or teat line, more specifically. I'm gonna flip one of our guys over here in a little bit. Her name is Lucy. She's a piglet and she's super loud. So I promise I'm not hurting her. She's just a really loud piglet. But let me tell you what I'm gonna look for before I flip her over, because you may have a hard time seeing it. On pigs, their teats along their belly should be evenly spaced and along a central line. When we're talking about evenly spaced teat line, what I mean is you're gonna wanna have each teat across from each other, evenly spaced with 2, and then 2, and then 2, and then 2, so on and so forth up the belly of the pig. The reason for that is because if you don't have evenly spaced teats, and let's say you have 2 teats that are really close together, what happens is that when that sow gives birth to piglets, those piglets are going to have to compete for each of those teats. So you don't want piglets competing for milk. That's a bad situation for them. So what we want is space for each piglet to be able to nurse on its own. Let me grab. So mad. Okay.
Mom, Sally. All right, so as we make our way down to one of the outer pastures here, I want to talk a little bit about the temperament of these pigs. So Kunekune should be very docile, very curious, and very sweet. We've never had any issues with mean or aggressive pigs. They're amazing animals to have on the farm. They're easy to interact with. As far as their size goes, there's a myth that the Kunekunes are miniature pigs. They're small pigs, yes. but most adult kunekunes should be in the range of 250 to 350 pounds. We'll talk more about feeding, but part of the misconception is that sometimes you'll have a malnourished pig because they're not provided with the proper nutrition, the belief being that they could survive solely on forage and brooding, which is not the case as well. When we're talking about farrowing, kunekunes are good moms. They don't need a lot of interaction. They don't need a lot of intervention when they're birthing. When they're farrowing, it should be a pretty easy, straightforward event. Many times you may not even notice until after the fact and you come out and you've got a litter full of cute baby piglets. So in terms of mothering, you really don't have much to worry about either with the kunekunes. They're instinctually great moms. You also don't have to worry much about crushing as you would with, say, a larger hog, because with the kunekune, they can move up and down with much more ease than some of the standard big hogs. Hi, guys. Hi, Sally. Oh. Speaking of moms, this is one of our gilt Sally. Hi, Bacon. This is Bacon. He is a castrated boar, otherwise known as a barrow, and he keeps her company. Here he's actually going to be, he's a meat pig, so he's destined for our freezer. However, right now he keeps her company and they're buddies. But Sally will be a mom. We don't have to put crush rails generally. There's mixed opinions about this, but we don't put crush rails in when we're farrowing litters. We haven't had a whole lot of loss from piglets being crushed or that being an issue at all. So we don't worry about doing that as much. It's just a really easy pig to allow to just do their thing, have their babies, and keep it moving, really. The last thing that we're going to talk about as far as breed characteristics goes are the colors that these guys come in. There's a number of color variations to look out for. We have several on this farm. We don't have all of them, but I will do my best to explain to you what they are. There is a solid black pig, which is self-explanatory. There's a brown pig. There's a cream pig, which is what this guy here is. This is Bacon, and Bacon is a solid cream pig. This, while you're down here, let's check out Sally. So Sally is what's called a ginger and black. She's a ginger base with these black markings on her. There's also a solid ginger pig that would be very similar to Sally without the black. So it's pretty straightforward. You've also got a black and white pig and a white and black pig. Sounds very similar, the difference being that if you remember Lucy, the little white piglet from a little bit ago, she's a white and black. She's a white base with black spots. Charlie, the slightly larger piglet that was in there, Charlie, the slightly larger piglet that was in there is a black and white pig. He's a black base with white marks. You can also have, our board, Jack is also a black pig with white marks, so he's a black and white. You can also have a tricolored pig, which is 3 of the colors in one. And the last color variation that is out there is what's called a gold tip. And we have one, Charlie is a gold tipped pig. He's a black and white pig with gold tips, meaning that he has a base color pattern, but then at the ends of his hair is a ginger color, sort of like this. It's a gold color, actually. And so when the sun hits it, it's a beautiful, vibrant color that you would see in him. So those are your color variations in kunekunes. So while we're down here in this outer pasture talking with Sally and Bacon, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're going to discuss next, and that is the requirements for housing and shelter. So as you can see, these guys live in just a little run-in barn that we've made. Hi, Aiden. A little run-in barn that we've made. It's nothing fancy. It stops the wind, it stops the water, and that's about all they need. We do fill it with hay to keep some insulation factors in there, but I do want to discuss what you see right here. Now, they've created this one themselves on the side of their run-in, probably because they're a little bit lazy, and this is about as close to their house as they could get. But it's just essentially, this one's dry right now, but it's what's called a wallow, and it's really important to provide a wallow space or wallow area that your pigs will have. That is true all year round. I can't stress that enough, particularly in the summer. Kunekunes don't have a natural defense against sunburn. Even though they are a hairy pig, they do not have a natural defense against that. Kunekunes need to have a place where they can wallow up, they can roll around in the mud, get that mud all over them, and that mud is essentially a sunscreen for them. So make sure that you're providing something for them to be, some place for them to be able to roll around in the mud. All right, so I forgot this part when we were talking about breed characteristics. I do want to talk about the hair levels of Kunekunes. We've got Penny and Juno over here helping out. Thank you guys. So Kunekunes come in a variety of hairiness levels, hairiness amounts, I guess like humans. They come from almost hair, thank you Penny. They come in almost hairless to pretty hairy. And you'll see them, our pigs are kind of a medium haired pig. So this is kind of a medium haired variety of Kunekune that you'll see. Oh, that's the spot. And what you'll see is with a really hairy Kunekune, it'll actually almost look like a Mangalitsa, where it's super curly and super furry. It doesn't really affect anything. It's not going to provide much more warmth if they're hairless versus super hairy. I don't think that you can put a hairy pig out on pasture with no defense, no shelter. It's just not going to happen. So, all right, on to the next thing. So, fencing. Everyone says pigs are hard to keep in. I challenge that. I challenge that immensely. Our pigs we do run a perimeter all the way around our farm of this 4 foot, this is actually 5 foot section here, but most of it's this 4 foot woven wire 2x4 fencing. But that's only really necessary for us because we have the livestock guardian dogs, we've got goats, we've got some other animals that are much more prone to being escape artists than the pigs themselves. I'm going to show you a little bit about what we've used for both hogs. And I'm talking 350-pound hogs and the little Kunekunes, and that's just a double strand of wire that we run off of a solar charger. So so this is the Premier One solar charger. It's a very easy unit to be able to move, transport, and it clips into either the poly wire strand that we ran here with this 2 wires, as you can see, or it runs into the electric netting that they sell through their company. Both work great. I absolutely love this product. It's very easy to transport. It's got a handle under here. It's got 2 grounds underneath that we just pushed into the dirt or into the ground. If you need additional ground, you can get rods and pound them in and give yourself a stronger ground. But for us in this situation, we need nothing else than this. It comes with 2 clips. One clip clips down here to the ground. One clip clips onto whatever source you're wanting to electrify. In this case, it's the poly wire that we're using. And as you can see, these are about 300-pound hogs, and it is keeping them in no problem. It does the same thing for Kunekunes. If we were to clip it onto the netting, we would literally just clip it onto any piece of the netting here, and this entire panel would become electrified. It's not only great to keep pigs in or whatever in, but it's great for predator control too. I'm not sponsoring Premier One. I'm not saying that that's the only company to use. I'm just saying that's what we use, and it is a fantastic product. So this isn't a Kunekune, but I wanted you all to meet Stanley. This is Stan, or Lord Stanley. He came to us last year, and he is our baby doll ram. And he's just Stan the man. We love him. He's named after the Capitals win, the Stanley Cup win in 2018. And he is
Just a love bug, aren't you, bud?
And then we've got Penny chasing chickens, or turkeys, excuse me. And turkeys chasing Penny. And Clover saying hi. Hi, Clover. So as you can see, it's almost dinner time for these guys. They're following me around, and I'm afraid that we're not going to get a shot without a ton of animals around. So bear with us. I know that there's more than just pigs here, but there's more than just pigs on our farm. So we're going to roll with it. The last thing that I want to discuss before we talk about the economics and the reasons behind us keeping Kunekunes is the veterinary care and maintenance that you're going to want to do, the physical maintenance that you're going to want to do with your animal. All right, so number 1 is parasite control. We use an injectable ivermectin as a dewormer here, and we do it as needed, with the exception of if a sow is going to farrow, or sometimes in the spring if we've got a heavy load of parasites. And any of the other animals, then I'll just go ahead and worm the pigs as well. There are a couple of other products that you can use. You can use fenbendazole. There's several others on the market. That's completely up to you, and that's a personal preference as to when you use them and how you use them and which ones you use. So number 2 is vaccination. This is a completely personal choice as to whether or not you on your farm choose to do it. It's also a choice that you should incorporate your veterinarian into making. In some areas,
there is no need for vaccinations, and there is different needs for different vaccinations in different areas of the country or the world, depending on where you're watching this from. So make sure that you reach out to your veterinarian and find out from him or her what they recommend as far as vaccination goes. We do a RhinoShield here. It's just a vaccine that we give our piglets, and something that we utilize to prevent some of the diseases that are centralized to our area, which is Central Maryland. All right, so the last bit of maintenance that we do is hoof trimming on these guys. They're really muddy right now, so I'm not going to get into the details of it, and we will make a video in the future as to how to properly do that. But essentially what you want to do is make sure that your pig's hooves are trimmed down so that they're not walking and on their more of the base of their foot down here. You want them to kind of be upright like this. And if you see their pastern collapsing or anything like that, it could be a problem with the characteristics of the pig, but more than likely it's a problem because they haven't had their feet trimmed properly. We'll get into that later on in another video, but that is something that you're going to want to do probably every 6 weeks or so, just like goats and sheep as well.
Yeah.
So why did Travis and I ultimately decide that the Kunekune was right for us? When we were deciding which animals to specialize in here at Boots to Roots, we made a pros and cons list of everything that we wanted in an animal. And when we did the Kunekunes, the pros greatly outnumbered the cons. So for Travis, number one, the fact that they don't root a lot was a big plus for him. He's our primary grass farmer here on the farm. He's in charge of all of our pastures, and that was important to him. Number two, for me, what was really important was that we have an animal that was docile and gentle with both our kids, but as well as the neighbors' kids. We have a lot of children here going back and forth on the farm, and having an animal that I knew wasn't going to bite or hurt them was paramount as well. Ultimately though, those don't sustain a working farm, to be blunt. It's the economics behind it. Why the product is the right choice from a marketability and sellability standpoint, as well as the numbers behind, the math behind it, and making sure that the revenue was strong enough to be able to sustain this project for us. Okay, so in a few minutes, we're going to talk about the pig math behind it, or what I call the pig math. It's the economics behind how this revenue makes sense. And that's going to be based on a pig versus traditional market hog or pastured hog model. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Right now, I want to talk about the marketability and the sellability of the Kunekunes and why it made sense for us in our local area. The Kunekune is what's considered a lard pig. So you have a lard pig and you have a meat pig. Your traditional hogs, your Berkshires, your Yorkshires, some of these heritage breeds, the old Duroc, or excuse me, the old Spot, the Durocs, they are all meat pigs, meaning that's where you're going to get your pork chops, your bacon, things like that from. It's something that people are used to seeing in the grocery store. The grocery store pork is a meat pig. Lard pigs, on the other hand, are say the Mangalitsa's, the Kunekunes, the American guinea hog. These are all what's considered a lard pig. They have a lot more fat content around their body. Remember, Kunekune means fat and round. So for them, the meat is going to be a much richer, much more marbled meat. It's going to have a distinctive flavor, and it really lends itself well for both rendered lard, beautiful, delicious rendered lard, as well as value-added charcuterie. And for us, that's a huge plus. That makes a lot of sense. We live in an area right now where we have 3 major metropolitan foodie markets that are all within an hour's drive of us. We have chefs that reach out to us for the meat because it's kind of the new high-end niche pork product that a lot of chefs are serving at their restaurants. It's also an area where we can offer the charcuterie, that value-added charcuterie, to folks who are interested in having that and do have that discretionary income to be able to afford a product like that. That may not be the case where you are. You just have to make that determination based on what you have and based on the market in your area. I want this, it makes me feel better. There. Can you tell?
No.
Okay, well, whatever. All right. Okay, so I forgot one. Where?
Right here. No, it's all right. Yeah, I know.
Is it mud? I'm getting more mud on it, aren't I? Because my hands are dirty.
And like, oh no, that's your birthmark thing.
Oh yeah, okay. Ready?
Okay, sorry, we had to cut. Aiden told me I had mud on my face, but such is the life of a pig farmer. I have mud just about everywhere. I did miss one thing. I wanted to talk quickly about live animal sales. All of our Kunekunes are registered with the exception of the pigs that are destined for market. The Kunekunes that we raise as piglets that have those great breed characteristics that we talked about, the ones that we see exceptional traits in, we do sell those as a registered Kunekune piglet, and pigs occasionally. So that is another revenue stream that we do see from these pigs as well. So if that's something that you think you might be able to get into, or if you're interested in a piglet, reach out to us. We do have several litters a year of registered Kunekunes. Okay guys, let's talk pig math. Let's talk the economics behind our choice. Let's talk about the difference between a typical pastured hog versus a pastured Kunekune. Why did we choose a smaller, longer growing pig, and how does that make any sense? Let's look at the next couple of pages and hopefully you can decide for yourself. Number 1, let's talk about the average cost to feed a pastured hog versus a Kunekune. For a hog, processing, it takes about 6 months. That's feeder to processor. They eat a 50-pound bag of feed about every 7 days, and at a cost of around $14 a bag. These are your numbers. 180 days or 6 months divided by 7 means that each hog will eat 25.71 bags of feed in their lifetime. At $14, that's about $360 to feed each hog. As opposed to the Kunekune, whose processing time is double that, 365 days or 12 months, although they only eat a 50-pound bag of food about every 25 days. And at $14 a bag, it looks like this. 365 divided by 25 is 14.6 bags per Kunekune. At $14 a bag, that's about $204 to feed each Kunekune, as opposed to the $360 per hog. Now let's talk about revenue. The average return on pastured hogs looks like this. We get about $5 per pound for hanging weight in our area. The average hanging weight for the hogs that we bring in is about 180 pounds. And if we multiply that $5 per pound times that 180 pounds, we get about a $900 gross return. Minus the $360 that it costs to feed that hog, leaves us with a net return per hog of around $541. Kunekunes now, on the other hand, we get an average hanging weight of $9 per pound. And at an average hanging weight of 90 pounds, we get 9 times 90 equals $810 gross return. That minus the $204 leaves us with $606 per hog or per Kunekune. That's a difference of $65 per pig. Now I know that a lot of you are going to talk about the fact that you can run twice as many batches of hogs throughout the time that you would be able to run one batch of Kunekune. However, I will tell you that you will run twice as many Kunekunes during that same period. This is a whole and half pig, and that is not to include the value-added items from charcuterie and things like that. I'm also going to talk about registered stock and feeders, both of which generally bring in about triple the amount that a standard hog would do. I hope this video helped you decide if Kunekunes are right for you, your family, and your farm. Next week, we'll be diving into more of the veterinary care surrounding both pigs and horses and sheep and goats. I hope that you enjoyed our content today, and I'm super excited to start creating more for you. Keep an eye out. Mondays by 6 every week, we hope to put out a new video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.